Well, let's head over now to another subject matter. Markwe?
So much, Chamberlain. We have with us in the studio Dr. Sam Amadi. He is the former chairman of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
Well, just was it yesterday now, or I'm not very certain when this particular story broke, but then we saw this, will I say, letter written by the NERC, the regulatory body, to about 8 discos, saying that they have breached the terms of the EPSRA. The EPSRA is the electricity, beg your pardon, I'm trying to find just what that means now. The Electric Power Sector Reform Act. Yeah, that they have breached it, and that they should show why their licenses should not be cancelled in accordance with Section 74 of the EPSRA. I think you have 60 days to do that. But people are wondering, why has this come up now? And what precisely could be the consequences of what the body is saying? Is this the first time, first, let me ask this. Is this the first time that the NERC is issuing a query to discos?
No. It can be. Even before we came on board, NERC, the Pioneer Commission, had done that. We did it in several cases. In fact, at some point, we issued query to all IPPs, that means independent power producers that were licensed, but who were not making progress, to all come and show cause why the license should not be cancelled. And many of them started throwing, bringing volumes of cartons of documents showing how much they are already discussing with their financiers, with EPC contractors, and showing that they're making progress towards, because even when we give you the license to generate, it means that the NERC monitors your development to make sure that you're actually working with the milestones that you filed, that you're going to do this and do this in 4 years, you'll be up and running. So even those who are not even in the grid, who are just we have to ask them to show cause, and many of them came and justified why delays in their project development. So essentially,
that was
it's
to
routine.
IPPs. Then
even the discos we issued, for example, the issues around metering. We did a snap audit when we had allegations about financial, maybe lack of due process in managing the finances. And our people went around and discovered that perhaps some of the books, the accounting systems and accounts of these discos were not adding up. After investigation by our experts, we issued an inquiry to justify. Many of them came and showed why, perhaps, for example, a disco bought a house for, let's say, 80 million, 100 million for its CEO, because the finances of the disco, the approved tariff for them, revenue requirement, both for personnel, maintenance, and capital, are supposed to be spent along regulated terms. So when we discover that they have misspent, or they have spent on things that are not frivolous, or even not procured to due process, we trigger an inquiry. The inquiry leads to indictment, if you like, a query. Then they come, there's a hearing, they produce evidence, they're justified. The regulator may now say, okay, they've proved their case, or may give them different levels of punishment.
How often does this happen? And has it ever happened? I know you might not know what's going on in there now, but has it ever happened that 8 discos at once get queried up about the same time?
Well, maybe not. The scale of this query is because they conducted, this is an industry-based violation, in the sense that remittances, which seems to be the main point, many of these discos probably are in default collectively. So in which case the citation now goes to other discos. It looks like the whole market. And if you look at, only 3 discos are exempted, ECO, Ebado, and one other one. Perhaps those ones have met, NERC has negotiated a threshold, minimum remittance, after all this contagion of no remittance and all that. And then perhaps these are the only 3 that have kept faith. For NERC to have gone this, there has been flagrant violation. And in their own opinion, perhaps not just involuntary, but now in a sense in which perhaps the operators themselves are not just that they're held back, constrained by circumstances, but they're not making good effort to fund the market, which is critical for improvement, for maintenance services, and even for regulatory activity. So essentially, this is the scale is perhaps a little bit looks like a contagion, maybe to outsiders, to investors. People say, oh, wow, the 8 discos out of 11 are cited for massive violation that could lead to forfeiture of
licenses,
then it tells a story of some level of pandemic. So in that sense, the perception, the optics may look extraordinary, but in essence, the job of monitoring, querying, and punishing regulated entities is routine in the market. That's part of what regulation is all about. But whether I think there's a sense in which people are testing for blood. So all those who feel the discourse have not delivered to them, irrespective of the constraint the discourse face, would be thinking, wow, thank God, they're going to lose their license. But I don't think the regulator is taking that way. The regulator is going to look at the rules, look at discipline process, and make sure that the licensed entities respect the rules of the game, as well as put some sanctions that can incentivize them and nudge them towards better performance. So it might not end as dramatic as it has started.
Okay, so we're seeing on the, I think that just appeared now, the list of discos that are that have been queried by the NERC. And top on the list is the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. I'm laughing because I live here in Abuja, but I'm wondering why it is that, I mean, I don't own shares.
Well,
nobody does.
Alphabetically,
Benin Electricity Distribution Company is next. Enugu, I think they're listed in alphabetical order, as you rightly pointed out. Ikeja Electric PLC, Kaduna Electricity Distribution Company, Kano is also listed there, Port Harcourt and Yola Electricity Distribution Company. Now, you have said that it's very unlikely that NERC will be looking at actually revoking their licenses, even though some people would say that if the sanction for violation of this particular section of the Act, which has been stated, is that you lose your license, especially if you're found wanting. How high are the chances that indeed you could lose your license, considering where the electricity market is currently at?
Well, if it's appropriate and inappropriate, if the investors want a contract and law-based market, which is what gives it confidence, and a particular investor has played foul of the law, fundamentally flagrant and perhaps continuing violation, then you lose the license. It follows from, it should be consequential. So I don't want us to make losing a license look like far-fetched, impossible. That's part of the contractual basis of market, that you are entering into a market on certain agreements. A regulated market means that you could be delicensed. But that's a capital offense, and you would assume three things are important. One, the clarity of the offense, you are citing them. Two is the fact that they have opportunity to prove that they're innocent, or that they are constrained in a reasonable way, that the regulator should take notice of system constraints. And part of the argument put forward is to say, oh, the tariff, blah, blah, blah. But of course, NERC would have an argument to say, look, even if the tariff is not cost efficient, with what you have, this is what you should be doing. And so it might not be that either you're not doing enough in terms of collecting your revenues, or you're not doing enough in terms of prudent management of, or you are.
So it is instructive. I mean, it's very instructive, even though, yes, majority of them are in violation according to NERC. That at least 3 of them are not. So it's not, yes, it's endemic, or it's a pandemic.
Yeah, but at least there are 3 examples.
There are 3 examples that are doing right.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, the exceptions to this.
And what NERC is doing actually is the right way to manage a regulated market. Let's not forget, see, the whole idea about the market inefficiency will not be cured because they assume that once private sector come in. We have argued that in the economics of regulation, behavior of firms is based on the costs that regulators can impose on them. So firms, private firms like public firms, would like to deliver less at higher price or avoid those regulatory constraints. It's for you to enforce those rules, and in doing that, the electricity market is designed in a kind of collegial manner. That's peer review. We have the industry independent stakeholder, industry stakeholder advisory panel, and other industry and NERC rule-making bodies. So the idea here is that NERC will not just wake up in the morning and just feel like, look, let's show them pepper, as they say, quote and unquote. NERC would have based it on commonly agreed somehow, well, transparently determined benchmarks, and then investigate and show. That's why it's adjudicatory. You are going to show.
I'm a little curious as to the mentality of those who have been queried right now. I'm trying to picture a classroom where majority of students have run foul, and maybe there's something very strong prescribed. Maybe suspension, for instance, is prescribed as punishment for the particular offense committed by school rules. Now imagine that maybe more than half a class, or maybe just 5 people out of a class of say 50, or you know, I'm trying to find a figure now. I'm sure the remaining 45 will be wondering,
how do we feel?
Is it possible that we will actually be, all of us will be suspended? You know, that mentality, especially when you look at the consequences of this.
Absolutely.
Could it be possible that the discos are thinking in their head, well, NERC, are you really, is it possible, assuming all of us are not able to prove that we have no reason why we have violated this, is it possible for NERC to actually revoke all licenses of the 8 discos in question right now?
Well, from a corporate behavior analysis, you're right. They are going to, there's a sense in which there's a kind of, the risk is more on the network than on them. I mean, 8 discos license cancelled would be a major crisis in any sector. And what that means could mean that first, alternative service provider, are you going to arrange, if you take them out, do you have somebody quickly to jump in and provide those services? Because it's just like telecom, there must be continuous service. You can't just say, oh, today we'll cut off and stop, and they will shop for 2 months for those who replace them. So there's a sense in which the entities in the market have stronger bargaining power, because you just can't scrape them away. And of course, their contract, they are not saying, some reporters are saying, they say, okay, you know what, we're willing to dump this. So, and that's the problem with negotiating privatization transactions, because before you privatize, it's already assumed that you're a distressed company. So if I'm going to privatize, the assumption is that you're already distressed. That's why you're going to privatize. And that gives you less bargaining power in negotiating a deal. And so what happens, therefore, is that privatization is always a lose-lose for those who are privatizing. One is that you're going to get not fair pricing because you're already ailing, and that's why you have to sell off. And then the guys who go to buy are going to extract greater commitments. And in economics, we say incomplete contracts. No contract is complete. So how do you deal with the unanticipated, the contingencies in the future? And how they do that is to provide for themselves safeguard, to say, okay, in this contract, if you take off this, then you pay us back everything. So that's the idea about incomplete contract in economics. And what that means, therefore, is that these companies are in a stronger position, except you are able to also bring counter, alternative plans in a way that you can really call in, the alternatives if you show them a way. First, the contract seems to give them a lot more bargaining power. So look, if you take us off, you got to pay us this.
What is the incentive then for them to behave properly? What is the incentive then for them to meet agreements as agreed with the regulator?
I think the biggest incentive will be the power of the regulator to financially indemnify them. So, for example, when we did the audit or cite them for violations, for example, some of those who overbilled estimated customers in Abuja and elsewhere when we're there, we have to say pay 80 million, 100 million. So those financial fines, once they are reasonable and they are, punitive enough, hits them, because at that point they won't say this is political risk. They can't dump the asset, but their contract. What gives them that is that, oh, government has intervention. There's a risk. There's a political risk. But if it's a regulated decision in the market, then they will have incentive. You see, that sanction incentivizes them.
I have to ask you to hold your thoughts. We have to take a break at this moment. We will come back shortly to finish up. Please stay with us. The head of Private and Commercial Law, Bayes University here in Abuja. Just, wondering, if people will be saying this is about remittances that affects the entire system. What about things that affect us, like metering and things of the sort? We haven't seen that there has been a strong query like this that could, affect them losing their licenses. Do you think that more intentionally we should see publications of queries made to discos like this more intentionally?
Yeah, I think so, especially if it borders on consumer issues. That's where consumers are strongest. And the NERC and the market needs stronger bonding with consumers, because that's essentially the driver of this reform. If you need to increase tariffs, which may happen sooner or later, you need consumer confidence. So I think there's more communications and issues that what NERC is doing around consumer interest. I do know as a former chairman that often people call me and say, oh, this, and when I take it to NERC, the response is very good. Their staff, the staff focus is clear on ensuring efficient service. The commissioners are working hard. The problem with regulating a sector like electricity is that there is direct visibility with consumer issues. If there's a failure, consumers see it. If they come to the house, there's no light. And then NERC probably does not know, because there's always as much information. Operators have more information than regulators, even in more developed markets. That's why people are talking about breaking the IT giants. So essentially, NERC has a lot to do, but I think they are doing well. They need to communicate more on those things they do, and also cite discos and punish punish them more for consumer violation. This is a violation of this market. So you can say it's self-interested. Their revenue is there. The Genco's revenue is there. TCN, by the way, TCN has been doing this in certain people are questioning the TCN's powers to do those things. Now, NERC is probably taking over those responsibilities to cite for failure to perform market agreements. And that's commendable. The question now is process. Do it in a transparent way, as they normally do. NERC has a well-established... NERC was number one when I was there for FOI. It's still number one now. NERC is number one for procurement when I was there. It's still number one. So really, give it to NERC. It's a strong, credible, effective institution. Perhaps we've not yet got to power, but it shouldn't undermine their capacity to go through a fair adjudication. And the discourse will be, everybody should know that, look, this was fair.
How do you see this ending, this query?
Maybe until climax. I think at the end of the day, people are thinking that, oh, the license will be withdrawn. My own reading will be, no, it won't get to that. I think it will end with a behavioral change. It will end with some penitence on the part of discourse and a greater commitment to meeting their obligation. But of course, it will end with NERC also getting bigger and having more authority over the market, which is critical to regulation. They must be independent without political guidance as we were. They must make their mistakes and learn from it, as we made a mistake and learn from it. Regulation is iterative. You learn. That's the problem. People, they say, oh, this problem, they bomb them off. No, they learn by what doesn't work. It's knowledge-based activity. That means you are making predictions based on assumptions.
But does it put the discourse on notice? Does it give them any incentive to do better?
Yes, this is 60 days notice, which means in 2 monthly cycles.
What I mean is, does it... Oh.
You mean the
query? The query,
yes. The query serves no disco. Look, they may just pretend they want to keep that license. It's still profitable business. So why would they want to be taken off on the license? So they're going to try their best to meet with NERC's demand. This is going to signal to them that look, they're on a risk. And by the way, NERC may decide to fine them with massive financial forfeiture. So they're going to.
Dr. Amadi, I'm told that we're totally out of time. I have to thank you for your insights into this particular matter. Dr. Sam Amadi is a former chairman of the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission and is also the current head of private and commercial law at Bayes University here in Abuja. Well, that's the show this morning. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your comments as well. And Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Yeah, when you say here, I remember I used to be there. Well, thank you for watching as well. I'm Chamberlain. So.
By the way, I'm still waiting for a response to a complaint I sent to NERC. So, well, I'll hope to get that
Send
today.
it again.
Yeah, I'm Kaide Okikiolu.
Just wondering, are we going to have another round of license?
We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Amadi, have a wonderful day.